I wanted to thank you for doing this. I'm really excited about this because when I did the interview with Dion, it was very impromptu, and we were just kind of speculating on what we were going to do, and when I was asking the questions, I was speculating on how she was going to feel and what she was going to think and all that before she even left for Africa. So I'm really excited to be doing this interview with you today because it gives me an opportunity to ask you how you felt about things and what kind of emotions you had and reactions that you have and things like that. And so I'd like to start from the beginning. And from what I understand, you were in the hospital 13 weeks before you woke up, correct?
Well, no. Actually, I was in 3 different hospitals for a total of 13 weeks. The first hospital was the one in Atlanta. I think it's called the Atlanta Medical Center, because when I got hit, we were near Atlanta. And what happened with me, for the first 6 weeks, you'll probably have to talk to Stephanie to get more information on that. But what had happened is we were going up to North Carolina, and I was going to drive us, get us past Atlanta, and then we were going to have lunch, and Stephanie was going to take over. Well, probably, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 miles west of Atlanta, it was raining, and my car hydroplaned. I'd never had that experience before, and all of a sudden, my plane was just up in the air spinning around, and I thought we were dead, and it just happened in an instant. But fortunately, we landed probably about 20 yards off the interstate in some tall grass, and neither Stephanie nor I were hurt, and it didn't appear that there was any obvious damage to the car. But of course, it was unable to get it out of there, so I had to call a tow truck. I called AAA, and they said it was going to be about an hour before a tow truck could get there. So while we were waiting, I was just kind of amazed at how that had happened, and I kind of was interested to see, where my car came in. So I got out of the car, and I think it was still lightly drizzling, and I got out of the car, and I was kind of looking around, and I walked up towards the interstate. I was probably maybe 5 yards off the pavement, and I remember looking to my right. I kind of had my back towards the interstate, and I remember looking to the right to see where the skid marks began, and the last thing I remember was looking at my car. And evidently right at that instant, someone else in an SUV hydroplaned, and the vehicle hit me, and I was immediately knocked out. And then, I'll tell you what little bit I know from what people have told me. Stephanie said that she heard a loud noise, and she thought there was an accident, and she didn't see me in the car, so she thought maybe I had got out to check it out and help the people. And when she got out and didn't see me, and she saw evidently the SUV that hit me had pulled off the road down the ways a little while, and I think a lady was kind of getting out of the car and kind of coming towards her, and then she realized I wasn't around, and I think she told me she found me laying face down and thought I was dead, and I think she kind of freaked out, and evidently she was afraid to turn me over because she didn't really know what the deal was. And evidently during the process I flipped over, and I think I said, "What hit me?" I don't remember anything. I don't even remember being hit. Last thing I remember is seeing my car, and then 6 weeks later I woke up in a hospital bed with all these IVs in me, and I just felt like shit, and I was all drugged out, and I couldn't even move. I couldn't even, feed myself, and that's when people, told me what had happened. But evidently, within a short period of time, they called 911, and I think a lot of rescue vehicles came, and they were going to put me in a helicopter, but I think because of the weather they couldn't. So they took me. There was a nearby small hospital, maybe within a few miles of where the accident occurred, and I think they took me to the ER there. Decided pretty quickly I needed to go to a larger place, and that's when I was taken to the Atlanta Medical Center, and I was told that, for the first few days I was there, that I was talking to people, but I remember nothing of it. And I know I had a lot of broken ribs, I think mainly on my left side, and my hip and pelvis were broken pretty bad, and my right knee was busted up, and other damage on my body. But evidently they waited a few days, and they did the hip and pelvis surgery, and I think I was on life support and a trach, and evidently close to death a number of times over the few weeks. And I was told that somebody was there with me from my family or friends 24/7, but I didn't know about any of that. And I know when I did come out of the coma, and I was so drugged up, it really took me a few days to kind of understand what the situation was. And I do remember thinking that it would just be easier to die because I was just so, messed up and incapacitated, and I had, I'd always had a strong, healthy body and never, really took any kind of drugs, even Tylenol or an aspirin, and all of a sudden my body was pumped full of drugs, and I was, just unable to lift my arm or do anything.
Was that your first thought when you woke up, was it would be easier for me to just go ahead and die?
Yeah, and I really thought that for a couple of weeks. I was kind of depressed, and that was it. And, once I came out of the coma and they kind of explained what was going on, they did not do the knee surgery because I was in such fragile condition. They were afraid to try it, but so as soon as I came out of the coma, myself and my family and everybody was wanting me to get me over to Birmingham, and that was kind of a, I think sort of a miscommunication thing, because the whole time in Atlanta I was in an intensive care unit, and they were going to transfer me to St. Vincent's Hospital. At the time of the transfer, I did not need to be in an intensive care unit, but somehow the people at St. Vincent's thought I did. So it's like every day they would be telling me, and then they were going to drive me in an ambulance from Atlanta to Birmingham, and I didn't realize what that meant until I had the trip. But the bottom line was, for almost a week, every day I thought I was going home, and then I didn't. And I had a friend of mine, Marlena Lee, who was in the hospital with me a lot, that came over there right after I got out of the coma, and she basically had someone drive her car back to Birmingham, and she said, "I'm not leaving until you are." And that was about a week, and finally,
wow,
we were able to leave. And I remember, I thought that in my condition that they would have some sort of comfortable transport, but no, it was on a pallet, like you see these ER things, just a hard pallet in the back of the truck, and it would literally, it was like a ride from hell. And they would not allow Marlena to sit back with me, and I was back there kind of by myself, and just, it was horrible. I mean, but they did get me to St. Vincent's, and once I got there, I think I was there for several days before they did the knee surgery. And
in the video you can see where they've done the knee surgery, and it looks like, it looks like the stitches are going all the way down your entire leg.
Yeah, it was pretty extensive. The guy that did the surgery he's sort of the protege over at Jim Andrews, the orthopedic guru. Evidently, the guy that did the surgery is named Lau Kane, and evidently he's sort of a guru too, and he told me late after the surgery, he said it was the worst knee injury he had ever seen, and he didn't think he was going to be able to put it back together, but he was, real pleased, from his perspective, real pleased with the results. So, I was over at St. Vincent's, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 days. And then the whole time, this is kind of another piece from my perspective, is, when I used to go to the hospital and see these guys that had a catheter, a tube stuck down their penis,
right,
so that they would, basically just pee into a bag, it would just make me cringe to even think about that. But I ended up having a catheter in for about 10 weeks. When I was over in Atlanta, evidently I had tubes in every orifice. And,
you can see in the video that you do.
Yeah. And then when I got to St. Vincent's, I was still not able to, I didn't have enough strength to get on a bedpan. So I was like just, they had like a diaper under me. And then when I had to take a crap, I was just in my own shit. And that was very, sort of humiliating to me, because I'm very fastidious and hygiene oriented. But you're just amazing what you can do when you don't have a choice. But by the time I got over to Lakeshore, and I was really a little nervous about going to Lakeshore because I was so weak, and I didn't know, what I'd be doing. I didn't know if I would be strong enough to do the therapy. So I had some anxiety about that. But when I got over there, the people were wonderful. I was there for about 5 weeks, and they really just worked with me where I was at my own speed. And I was over there about 2 weeks before they were able to get the catheter out, and I was able to pee on my own. Prior to that, they had tried several times at St. Vincent's. They had taken it out, and then I couldn't pee, so they had to put it back in. So I had that thing in and out several times, and I'm just amazed, even thinking about it, that I could do that.
Was that a surrender of power for you?
Oh, it was totally this experience that I had. I thought I had been broken down before, emotionally and spiritually, but never physically like this. I was totally helpless. I was depending, for months, on people for my basic needs, to pee, to take a crap, to eat.
How did that feel?
It felt very helpless. There was a part of me, I was very thankful that people were there to take care of me. And of course, when you're in the hospital, you don't get the kind of care that you get, from family and friends when you're at home. But, I overall had, I had a lot of family and friends around, as much as they could be. But yeah, I didn't like it. I can remember, even over at Lakeshore, I was there. I literally, for 13 weeks, my world consisted of being flat on a bed in a hospital room somewhere. And when I was at Lakeshore, even by the time I left, I was not able to get out of bed by myself. They had to slide me what they call a slide board, and they kind of, from my board to the wheelchair, and from the wheelchair to the bed. Like when they would take me down to therapy at Lakeshore, that's how I would have to have somebody to help me get out of bed into the wheelchair, and then get back in bed. But for the first few weeks at Lakeshore, I couldn't do anything in therapy. My blood pressure would just plummet. They'd roll me down there in the wheelchair, and as soon as I started doing anything exercise-wise, I would just feel like I was going to faint, and then they would have to spend the rest of the time, having a blood pressure cuff on me and giving me ice and water, and sometimes they just had to take me back to my bed. But I was literally at Lakeshore I used to do therapy Monday through Friday from like 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, and it was about 3 weeks, almost maybe 3.5 weeks, before I could even stand up for the first time, just for like 10 seconds. And
what were the doctors telling you during this time? What were they saying to you? Were they saying you're never going to walk again? We don't know.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember anybody ever telling me I couldn't walk. I remember they said I'd probably be in a wheelchair for 6 to 8 months, and they were telling me all this stuff that didn't sound, real good.
Were they giving you diagnosis?
I don't think really diagnosis. I mean, I know for about maybe 6 months I had on my right leg, because the doctor that did the knee surgery, he was concerned. He wanted to make sure, he wanted my knee to scar down a lot so that I wouldn't be unstable. Even though he knew that would create an inability to stoop or bend that leg, he said that he thought that it was better to be too stiff than to take the risk of not having stability. So along those lines, I had a cast. It was it was removable, but I had to keep it on 24/7, except when I took a shower, all the way from my ankle to my hip. I had to keep that on all the time for about 5 or 6 months, and that made it very difficult, to get around. When I got to where I was at home and I was going to outpatient therapy and different chiropractor and different things I was going to, that I could not. I had to sit sideways across the back seat of whoever was taking me, because I couldn't bend my leg, to get in the front seat. But yeah, it was a very helpless feeling, being totally dependent on people for everything for so long.
How did you find your peace with that?
As I'm in the business of emotional freedom coach, so I just did a lot of work with accepting the reality of what the situation was and being thankful. After the first 2 weeks after I came out of the coma, I decided that I was going to live, and that I did choose to live, that it was going to be different, that there were going to be a lot of things that I would not be able to do anymore, but I was thankful. I started focusing on the things that I could do, and the fact that I didn't have any brain damage. I wasn't paralyzed for life. Like people looking at me, you wouldn't know right off. I just have I walk with a little bit of a limp, but unless people look closely, they wouldn't even know that I had a problem.
It's remarkable what all you see in the video, and then to look at you today, it's really remarkable how far you've come.
Yeah.
And when you were in the hospital, was there any one person or one, was there something tangible that you could hold on to, or something that you could do that brought you a feeling of peace, of comfort? Was it a person? Was it?
I won't say a particular person. The person, Stephanie, when I was in a coma, she was over there every weekend, but I didn't even know it. And then each of my sons were over there every week. The one from, I think he was in Houston at the time. He is a musician, and he works Wednesday through Saturday. So I think he would come over, fly over Sunday, and then go back Wednesday. And then my other son here in Birmingham was in football season. So I think after the game on Friday night, he and his fiance would drive over and stay till Sunday. So, I didn't find out any of this until I got out. But I guess the thing, just knowing that people cared so much, I was constantly amazed that, so many people were spending so much time doing things for me, coming to visit, bringing food, a lot of prayers. When I got home, I had a friend that moved in for 4 months to cook for me. I had people, for about the first month or two, I had somebody had to be here 24/7 because I just couldn't do anything. So people took, schedules of being here round the clock, and then when I had to go to therapy and chiropractors and whatever I was doing, people just showed up. And I was just, it brought me to tears to just all the love and all the service that people gave me. And there was very little of it. You know how sometimes if you're having a problem, you feel like somebody's making a mercy visit, or they just feel like it's their responsibility, not really that they want to be there. I had very little of that. The people that were showing up to help me and assist me, they seemed to enjoy it and be. As a matter of fact, I had several of them. I remember asking in amazement about all the stuff people were doing. They said, "Don, don't you realize how much you've done for us?" They said, "We just enjoy being around you." And I thought, man, that's amazing.
That is amazing. Now, on November 30th, 2009, you came home for the very first time after being in the hospital or several hospitals for 13 months. Can you walk me through that process? Can you tell me what?
Well, it was 13 weeks, actually.
13 weeks. I'm sorry. 13 weeks. Can you walk me through that process and tell me what it felt like to, walk through the door of your own home for the first time in 13 weeks?
Well, actually, I had some anxiety about even coming home because I was so weak, and I had lost 25 pounds in the hospital and all my muscle mass, and I was just extremely weak. So I was torn. I could have probably stayed at Lakeshore for another 2 or 3 weeks if I had asked, and I seriously considered that. But on the other hand, I was so tired of being in the hospitals that I just wanted to get out. And I didn't really know how it was going to be at home. I didn't really know how much help I was going to have. So I had a little anxiety about that. But I just decided to, come and try it. And there were 3 people that came to the hospital to help me. My sister and a couple of other friends that had been around the hospital a lot. And it was a rainy day, actually, when we came home. It was very drizzly. And it was really wonderful to get out of the hospital and to get in somebody's car and know that I was coming home. And when this happened, Stephanie and I were basically had packed for a week-long trip. So I had been away from my home for 13 weeks, and even though people had been checking in and taking care of stuff, it was like it did feel kind of weird. I didn't know how it was going to feel when I got home. And on the way,
had a very emotional reaction on the video.
Yeah, I did. On the way from the hospital, we stopped and picked up some food, and we were going to eat it at the house. And when we got here, of course, I was able to walk on the walker, but it seemed like it took forever to get from the car to the door.
And you did it with no help. That was what I really liked about it. Nobody really helped.
Well, yeah, people were kind of standing by. I didn't really need the help, but they were there in case. I did fall a little bit, but not bad. But when I was coming up the steps to the front porch, I sort of lost my balance and fell forward. I just remember, and see, I don't wear my shoes in my house, and people that come over here a lot, I know that I prefer them to come in through the garage and leave their shoes in the laundry room. Where it was, I had some tennis shoes on, and it was very rainy and messy outside. And I remember thinking when I got to the front door, I didn't want to walk in with my shoes on. And I remember my friends just laughed at me and said, "Don, it'll be fine. We'll clean up. Just come in." Yeah, when I got in, I was just overwhelmed. I can't remember if I think some tears did come to my eyes, but I got very choked up, and my house, I was wondering how it would feel being here, but my house felt the same. It felt very welcoming and it felt very nurturing, and I was just so glad to be home.
That's wonderful. Did it smell any different, or did it look any different, or did you?
Not really. You know, people had been coming over here. It's just like, you know, if you're gone for a week, you know, your house does. It seems like when I first come back, even though you keep the heating air on, it has a different smell to it for a little while. But it didn't. I don't remember that. It just felt really good to, you know, to be home, and it just, you know, just being here. I mean, and being out of the hospital, and being, you know, in my own bed, and kind of being on my own schedule. It just was wonderful.
On December 19th, 2009, it shows you walking for the very first time, and it's really amazing on the video because you just pick up the walker and you just start walking on your own. What did that feel like?
Well, it was just amazing. I mean, that was a very impromptu thing because my friend Marlena, the one that took most of just maybe all of the snapshots and the videos that Stephanie used for that little movie, Marlena happened to be over here with some other people, and I had gone in the kitchen for something, and I was walking back to the living room, and Marlena just stepped in the door of the den and turned her iPhone on. And so I just thought, I mean, and I hadn't even thought about doing that, but I just thought, well, I wonder if I can just lift my walker up because, you know, I wasn't going to go anywhere. I mean, if I started to fall, you know, I mean, my walker was just a few inches above the ground. So I thought, well, let me just see if I could do that. So I did, and then I was so surprised. And then that thing where I lifted it above my head there again, that was just very spontaneous thing.
And then it was just it's such a great moment in the video because it's like to me when I see it, it's like I beat this, you know, I've conquered this. I'm on my way. It's kind of like Rocky, you know, when he's. It felt kind of like one of those types of moments when I was watching it. Did it feel that way to you? Did it feel like, yeah, I'm coming back? Did you?
Well, it did. But while we're talking about that, it reminded me of an even more powerful moment at Lakeshore in the rehab, because over there you would pretty much see the same people at rehab every day. And, you know, everybody would watch everybody going through their struggles. And whether you talked to people or not, there was just this camaraderie that you kind of developed seeing people gradually make progress. And I felt like that I wasn't making any progress. And I remember many times seeing, you know, older people in their 70s and 80s just, you know, walking along on their walker, you know, getting in and out of bed by themselves. And I couldn't do that. And here I was, you know, used to be a young, healthy, strong person, and here I couldn't even do what these old people were doing. And when I was in rehab, I was hardly able to do anything. And I remember the first day that I was able to, what they had to do for about a week to get me to where I could even be vertical, they put me on something called I think it's called a slant board. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I'm not.
Well, what it is, they strap you down. You get on it, and you're laying horizontal, and then they have you strapped down, and then it's a mechanical thing. They can incline it at different angles, and they have a blood pressure cuff on you, and they want it to where you can get to be, I think, 70 or 80 degrees, and your blood pressure stays kind of normal before they'll try standing you up. So I remember for almost a week in therapy, they would put me on that thing, and they'd get me up to like, you know, 20 degrees, and then they'd check my blood pressure, and then they'd get me up to 30 degrees, and then we'd get up to 40 degrees, and then my blood pressure would go crazy, and we, you know, have to go down. So it took me about a week to get up to 70 degrees, and so the next day they were going to see if I could stand up out of my wheelchair. So I remember that day that I was able to, you know, I had to push myself up with my arms, and I had my walker in front of me, so I wasn't standing by myself. But that was the first time since I had the accident that I had been vertical And that was just, like for about 10 seconds, and then I had to sit back down again. Well, that felt pretty good, and so I thought over the next few weeks that we would do that until I could, because I remember when I stood up that first time, my legs felt like lead, and I couldn't even move my foot. I was just like I was planted in the ground, but I was happy to be able to stand up. And so the next day, when we did that again, I thought, well, I'll just stand up and then sit back down. But while I was standing, the therapist said, well, you want to try to take a step? And I said, yeah, I'd like to try, but I don't think I can. And so I remember it was like all the might I had, I was able to take a little step. And then I was able to take another one.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
I was able to take 8 steps on a walker, and I broke down and cried, and everybody in the therapy room started clapping.
And that's amazing.
It was amazing.
That is absolutely amazing. Do you need a minute?
Yeah, give me a minute. Whew. Yeah, there's
people walk all the time and they don't think anything of it, but to have that taken away from you, I can't imagine. I honestly, I can't sit here and say that I know that what you've been through, because I don't have any idea what you've been through, but I can just imagine what it must have felt like to be able to just take those 8 steps. What an accomplishment that must have been for you. Did it feel kind of like running a marathon?
Oh, yeah, it was amazing. And then, after that, for the last week and a half I was at Lakeshore, I would get up and walk a little further each day on my walker. And I remember, I think the farthest, when I was in therapy, I would just walk maybe about 30 yards and then go back to the wheelchair. But then I was so anxious to get better that I did some walking on the hall floor where I was. I would get somebody to help me. When a friend of mine was up there, I'd get them to help me get in the wheelchair, and then would roll out in the hall, and I'd get on my walker, and they would follow me with the wheelchair, in case I had to sit down real quickly. And so I did that a couple of times every day. But once I could start getting out of bed, I was pushing it as much as I could. I remember when I would go to outpatient physical therapy at Lakeshore, I'd go over there 3 days a week, and there wasn't a lot that they could do with me because I had that brace on my knee, and I really couldn't, they couldn't do much with my knee, so there just wasn't a lot they could do with me. And I remember I was trying to do as much as I could at home, and I can remember one night I had some friends over here, and I wanted to see if I could walk without the walker. I was going to do it in my living room, and I was going to have somebody in front of me, but I wanted to see if I could do it because I just felt like I needed to start retraining my body to balance. And so I was able to do it. I was able to walk, about 8 or 9 steps. And I remember the next day I went to therapy. I was so excited. I told my therapist, I said, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You just." So I quit telling them stuff. I just started doing things, pushing it, even if I didn't need to. It's like going up and down my basement stairs. One day I just decided to try to do that. I didn't really need to go down there for any reason, but I just wanted to see if I could. So it was just, after I was able to get out of the wheelchair, I just started pushing it as much as I could, and I think that helped my recovery a lot.
Why do you think you pushed so hard? Looking back,
well, because I just wanted to get back to where I could take care of myself as soon as I could, because I was very thankful to have everybody doing all this stuff. But I've all my life I've been one that takes care of other people, and I've lived by myself for 21 years, and I'm just used to doing everything. So I won't, plus I guess another piece of that is I'm a little bit, obsessive compulsive or organized, whatever you want to say. So all these people coming in my house that were putting up things, the same person would not even put the same thing in the same place. It wasn't like, I mean, of course, I've got, my places I like to keep things, but if other people are putting things, at least it would be good if they put them in the same place. But no, so my house was totally, I didn't know where anything was, and I was just wanting to get back in control of my life and where I could cook my own food and go get my groceries and didn't have to depend on anybody to take me anywhere. Like if I wanted to, go take a shower, I didn't want to have to depend on somebody being here. Or if I wanted to go get something from the grocery store, I wanted to be able to get in the car and go do it. So that was the reason. I was very motivated to get self-sufficient again.
And you were able to do that. So to me, it almost seems like you, in a way, were kind of born again, learning how to walk again and everything like that. And so, what do you think on a metaphysical level was the lesson that you were supposed to have learned from this experience?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I do believe there's a reason for everything. So this thing that happened to me, you might call it an accident, but the way it happened was almost impossible. I mean, I think that you could go out on a rainy day and stand on the side of the road all day, and the chances that a car would hydroplane just in the right place to hit you, I think is infinitesimal. Okay, and then the fact that you get hit by an SUV going 60 or 70 miles an hour and live is amazing. And then if you live and not have more, so all the sequence of things that happened indicate to me that it was just something that I was supposed to experience.
Right.
So I can't sit here and tell you what I was supposed to learn, and some of it I may never know. I know some of the things I have become more aware of is how many people love and care about me, and how I had no clue of how other people perceived me, because I just do things. I'm just a giver, and I just do things, and that's just what I do without really thinking about it. But I had such an outpouring of love and just people wanting to do things for me, and so that was pretty revealing. And
what
then,
do you think, as far as your faith goes, what was your faith before the accident versus your faith after the accident?
well, it's the same. I mean, I don't have a religion. I mean, I have a very deep spiritual basis in my life, but really, up until that point, I had come to understand that the body is not who we are. The essence of who we are is spiritual, but it took it to a deeper level, I think, because being so physically incapacitated for so long, and realizing that that's not who I am. And then even now I've got physical injuries that have changed my life forever, as far as things that I can do physically, but that doesn't affect who I am. And it's taken my ability to work with people, I think, to even a deeper level, because I can understand things now. I think I have more compassion for people and maybe more patience. And it was kind of interesting. I remember when I was in a wheelchair and on a walker and we would go places, how people, I noticed how people reacted to me. And it kind of reminded me of how, I've done this before with people. When you see someone with a physical handicap, sometimes you tend to think they're mentally handicapped too, and you tend to deal with them differently. And so it was kind of interesting to be on the other side of that, to see people dealing with me as a physically handicapped person.
I hear you on that. I think I'm guilty of doing that as well. I think I'll walk up to somebody in a wheelchair sometimes, and I may talk a little bit louder, or I may say something like, "Do you understand what I'm talking about?"
Right.
And I'm completely guilty of that myself.
Well, I think that's it. We all do that. So it just made me more aware of. It's made me more aware of the physical things that we take for granted. Okay, like just being able to stoop down. I can't do that anymore. I can't just get down on the floor and get up real easily. So just things that you that you just take for granted. And I watch people even more. I just watch people walk. I mean, when I walk, I still have, drop foot on my right foot worse than my left. So I kind of have to be really careful because I can lose my balance real easy and it's hard to recover. So because my feet don't, like when people walk, naturally is heel to toe, heel to toe. Well, that's not the way it works for me. I have to literally be conscious of lifting my foot because the toe drags. And it doesn't naturally come up when I move my leg forward. So just these things the ways that you adjust and compensate for physical issues.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about the outpouring of love, and one of the things that's so evident in the video is, and I don't know if people are aware of this when they watch it, but there's a Christmas scene where there's a present wrapped completely in emails, and I thought that was really amazing. First of all, that you had, that there was that was a very creative idea to take, all of those emails and wrap up a Christmas present. But
well, that was actually my birthday, and that Stephanie.
Oh, birthday.
Stephanie did that, and evidently during
I didn't know if it was Stephanie or not, so I didn't want to say who did.
Yeah, no. During the 6 weeks that I was in a coma, evidently there was a lot of emails going around, and Stephanie was right in the middle of all of it, keeping people informed and all this, and she printed off a stack of them after I got to where I could, felt like reading, and it was just amazing. And so, yeah, that was a real act of love in itself. She literally printed off a bunch of emails, and she had gotten me, had talked, I make a lot of ice cream, and I had gotten introduced to gelato, and so she had gotten me a gelato machine for my birthday, and yeah, she wrapped it in those emails, and I kept that box around here for months, and I think I finally got rid of it. But yeah, there were, I think, probably hundreds and hundreds.
Were you able to read them all?
Well, yeah, I read some of them, but I just wasn't interested in reading all of them. But yeah, Stephanie.
How did the accident change your relationship with Stephanie?
That's interesting because what I've heard, and like when I was at Lakeshore and around all these rehab people, I heard a lot about how traumatic accidents affected relationships. And it seems what they do, they either create separation or more depth in the relationship. I've met people over there that were, hit and then they were crippled or something, and their partner just couldn't deal with it and left them. And I'd say with Stephanie and I, there was some tension in the beginning because I needed so much care and I was getting so much attention. I'd have preferred not to have needed it, but I needed it. And she had a job at the time that she really hated, and she was working a lot and under a lot of pressure. And I felt like for the first few weeks that I was home that she wasn't really being very considerate to me and being kind of sharp. And I said something about it, and then she got pissed off. I think she was doing the best she could, and I think there was a part of it that it's like, well, shit, don't you know what everything I did for you while you were in a coma? Which I didn't. Exactly. So there was some extra stress in our relationship, for probably several months after I got home.
It's interesting that you say that.
And
I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, no, there was. While I was in the hospital, and out of the coma, she was up there as much as she could be and very loving and all that. But it's like after I got home for 2 or 3 months, it was kind of different. But then, overall, I think it's strengthened our relationship and taken it, to a new level. Because she's been very, considerate and understanding, of my physical limitations now.
Yeah.
And probably more so than me.
I have to say that I've never met a more giving, loving person, Stephanie. I mean, she's just really, and she's only been in my life for a very short time, and how we met and everything was just really cool. And, when I'm around her, I feel very safe and very, she's just a very great person. So to hear you say that you guys had some tension in your relationship, it just kind of shocks me. But I can see where that would happen.
Well, and it was probably two things. I mean, she was under a lot of stress in her job, and I certainly was not a happy camper with what I was having to deal with. Mm-hmm. And then, like I say, from all our friends and family, I was getting all the attention. So I think, I don't know sure what she was feeling, but I just know that there was there was some tension there for a while.
When was the day when everything started to turn around and you started to realize, hey, I'm coming back to Don. I'm coming back to who I am? What?
I don't remember a particular day. For me, it was just kind of like a gradual thing. It was like when I could get out of the wheelchair and use the walker, and then I could carry my laundry from the back room to the laundry room, and put the basket on top of my walker and do that. And then one day I was able to go into the kitchen and just prepare a simple meal. I had to have my walker there, but I was able to not lean on it. I could just kind of do stuff on the kitchen. I could stand up long enough to prepare something, and then one day I remember I could when I was able to take that brace off my right leg, I was able to just, in some cars, not all of them, I was able to sit in the passenger side. I was able to get my knee bent enough to get in. That was kind of a big deal. And then I remember one time, I think shortly after that, Stephanie had taken me somewhere, and I think she was driving my car, and we came home, and I was just wondering. I wasn't even planning on driving, but I was just curious. I thought, well, since I can sit in the passenger seat, the regular way, I wonder if I could sit in the driver's seat. So I went over there. She had gotten out. She was going into the house, and she kind of stopped when she saw me walking around the side of the car, and I was able to get in. And then I thought, well, since I'm here, I was just going to drive around the neighborhood, because it had been several months since I had been behind a steering wheel. So Stephanie didn't want me to go by myself, but she was afraid to ride with me. So she kind of finally got in the passenger seat, and nervously, and I remember I just kind of backed the car out and drove down my neighborhood, and I didn't go out into where there was any traffic, but that felt good. And then a few days later, I did gradually start driving around the area, started getting out on like a street in the traffic, and drove around to a few traffic lights, and just sort of got the feeling of it again. So it was just, for me, not any one thing, but just as I remember one day I was able to get in the shower by myself. I wanted to take a shower, and nobody was here, and I just thought, well, I wonder if I can do it. So, and then the first time I could go to the grocery store by myself, get in the car and drive over there. And, I was still on my walker, but I had to use my walker in the store. But, just to not have to have someone here to do these basic things.
I'm sure it gave you a lot of a sense of freedom and relief, right?
Yeah, and then, gradually, like I said, I lost about 25 pounds while I was in the hospital. I mean, I was so weak when I came home. And I remember at Lakeshore, about a week before I left there, the first time I happened to see myself I took my shirt off, because I had to shave in bed, and I was on the bedpan. I mean, I never saw what I looked like. And for some reason, I was in the bathroom. Somebody had rolled me in there, and I had my shirt off, and I happened to look in the mirror, and I was shocked. I mean, I felt like I looked like one of these Biafran refugees. My chest was sunken in, my shoulders were shrunken up, And so it was, it took me a few months to put some weight back on and, start feeling like myself again. And it was much, I for years, I've read a lot, and while I was in the hospital, I didn't feel like reading anything. When I came home, it was about 2 or 3 months before I even felt like reading. I mean, I just would sit, and I don't, watch television much, so I would just sit or lay in bed or, contemplate or something. But I just didn't feel, it took me a few months to start getting, I felt very apathetic, probably for about 6 months.
Did you ever meet the woman that hit you?
No. Stephanie talked to her right after the accident, and but that was it. And I did have get a personal injury attorney to see if there was anything to recover, but there was nothing. She had $25,000 and no assets beyond that, and I think I had $25,000 uninsured motorists, so I ended up getting about $28,000 after the attorneys got their money. And it's one of those things. I mean, even if I had gotten millions of dollars, I would not have taken the money for what happened. But
right.
When something like that happens, if you can get a large amount of money, that certainly is a blessing. But in my case, that didn't happen.
Have you thought about, have you ever thought about wanting to meet her?
No, I don't even. No, it was just an accident. I mean, I don't hold any, any grudge against her. It's just something that happened, and that's it.
That's really.
I really don't look back much. I mean, for years I've kind of gotten in the habit of really just focusing on right now. I mean, I don't think about, a lot of times what I'm going to have for dinner or what I'm going to do 3 hours from now. I mean, this is even, since I had this happen, I've had a lot more time when I don't really have much to do. And so I've gotten even more comfortable with just being. I don't feel like I have to be doing stuff or producing anything. And, I'd say overall, Thomas, that I am a happier, more peaceful person. I think I'm a better person as a result of it. I certainly would not have chosen that. I mean, if God said, "Hey, Don, you can get hit by an SUV and go through all this and have this permanent damage for the rest of your life, but you're going to be a better person and you're going to go to another level of spiritual awareness," I say, well, I don't think so.
What advice would you give to someone who may be going through something like this?
I don't think there's any advice to give, really. I wanted to when I was at Lakeshore and saw all the people up there that were really in pretty bad shape. I mean, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and didn't really have, anybody to visit them. I tried a number of times to do volunteer work up there, but it never went anywhere because I think there is, when somebody's, I remember there were a few people when I was going through all my stuff that tried to cheer me up and make me feel better, and I just wanted to tell them to fuck off. I mean, that's not what I wanted. And so, I had learned prior to that, because I did volunteer hospice work for about 5 years in the home, and I worked at an AIDS clinic at Birmingham AIDS Outreach for about a year. So I was used to being with very sick people, and I knew how to just be with them and not try to fix them or cheer them up. And so, I felt like I had a lot to offer, but it just didn't work out at Lakeshore. So, there's no advice. The only advice I would give, or something I would tell people that are dealing with people in a rough spot, is to just be with them. Don't try to cheer them up or fix them or tell them how everything wonderful is. Just, but a lot of people are not comfortable doing that.
Well, at the end of the video, there's a scene where you are walking out onto the beach, and there are birds there, and you're walking into the ocean for the very first time. And that's kind of where I would like to end this interview, is just ask you, what did it feel like to just be one with nature, one with water and the earth and the sky above you, and What did that feel like?
It felt really good. I mean, we were out, we got out a ways, but there were sandbars, so the water wasn't that deep, and it was a little hard for me to walk, with the waves coming up against me to keep my balance. But it felt wonderful, to kind of be out there. And, that video, I mean, Stephanie did that 1 year from the date of the accident, and it was really totally impromptu because my friend Marlena just took a bunch of pictures and little videos when she happened to be around. And Stephanie had gotten into her Mac and doing stuff, and she just decided to do that. And the first few times I saw it, I cried, and I still sometimes, even though I've seen it many times, still I'll look at it and just, I'll just bring tears to my eyes, just, realizing what I went through and the love and what she went through and the love that she put into doing it. I mean, I could just feel it. I think anybody can. I mean, it was just a very loving, sort of, I don't know what you call it, memory thing or whatever. I mean,
for me, it took me on a journey because it started with the words, "In an instant, everything can change."
Yeah.
And then we go on this journey with you, and then at the end, you're walking on the beach. So for me, it was a video about recovery and strength and unity and love. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
So she did it. I mean, Stephanie's got a real knack to take images and create a beautiful story with the images and the music. And I think everybody that's seen that has been touched. I mean, even people that don't know me, she's had feedback about how it just touches them.
My caller ID is going off. I hate that. I don't know how to turn mine off.
Well, what you do you have three-way call?
It stopped now, but
okay, you can block it. That's what I did when we started, because that is irritating.
Yes, it is. But I want to thank you very much for this interview, and thank you for taking the time to answer all of my questions. And I hope that it was, like I said, it was a very emotional thing for me to watch. And I'm just somebody watching it. So maybe Stephanie can do something with this and put it out there for other people to see, because I think it's an amazing story. I really do.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with it, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.